republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting agenda as presented.
And second.
Second.
Seconds, roll call.
Schrader?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Landers?
Yes.
Tomato? Espinoza?
Yes.
Haas?
Okay, oath of office. That's you. You got it? Yay! All right, so if you just want to stand, you can raise your right hand, and then did you see the little spots where there's going to be stuff to fill in?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Got it. Go ahead, just read right through it.
I, Garrett Williams, do solemnly swear that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of member of the Board of Education of Mendota District 289 in accordance with the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the laws of the State of Illinois to the best of my ability. I further swear that I shall respect taxpayer interests by serving as a faithful protector of the school district's assets. I shall encourage and respect the free expression of opinion by my fellow board members and others who seek a hearing before the board while respecting the privacy of students and employees. I shall recognize that a board member has no legal authority as an individual and that decisions can be made only by a majority vote at a public board meeting. I shall abide by majority decisions of the board while retaining the right to seek changes in such decisions through ethical and constructive channels. As a part of the Board of Education, Board of School Directors, I shall accept the responsibility for my role in the equitable and quality education of every student in the school district. I shall foster with the board extensive participation of the community, formulate goals, define outcomes, and set the course for Mendota District 289. I shall assist in establishing a structure and an environment designed to ensure all students have the opportunity to attain their maximum potential through a sound organizational framework. I shall strive to ensure a conscious, continuous assessment of student achievement in all conditions affecting the education of our children in compliance with state law. I shall serve as education's key advocate on behalf of students and our community school to advance the vision for Mendota District 289, and I shall strive to work together with the district superintendent to lead the school district toward fulfilling the vision of the board as creative, fostering excellence for every student in the areas of academic skills, knowledge, citizenship, and personal development.
Congratulations. Thank you. Too bad it's not longer, right?
Yeah.
It's short.
Thank you.
All right. Do you have any public comments this evening? No. Okay. Can we have a motion to approve consent agenda, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. 6.1 disposition of minutes for July 2023, 6.2 payment of bills, 6.3 district treasurer's report, 6.4 interest and activity fund report, cafeteria report, and 6.5 the personnel report as presented.
Motion, do I have a second?
Haas? Yes. Espinoza?
Yes.
Tomato? Landers?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
Informational items, do we have any FOIAs?
No, ma'am.
Do you want to do your part or do you want to wait till June?
Yeah, I'll do my part,
Okay.
that's okay. A couple of things to update on. Over the last 2 days with the Teacher Institute, our staff in teams spent a lot of time on all of the, what I'm going to call CSS components that we've been talking about. Basically making sure that across the grade levels and then as kids work through the grades, there's consistency with respect to, so one of the things that we've spent a lot of time on is our behavior systems, and so everybody's using the same behavior systems, like the Spartan Spark positive incentives. That's now going to be carried down to all 3 buildings. Also spent a lot of time on kind of the homework and grading pieces, trying to bring that continuity together. And so I think in the last 2 days, those teams have spent 4+ hours working together, coming up, making sure that all the team members are on the same page with those things. again, that's just the starting conversation, right? And so we'll continue to tweak as we move through this. But I'm super proud of the people in the organization that, you know, they're taking this on. Some people have to change the way that they do business. Some people have really good, sound educational reasons why they've done this for a decade or more. And now they're having to tweak some of that to get in line with the way that the grade level or the team is doing it. So couldn't be more proud of the movement that we're making in those pieces. We have, if you remember on our app, there's now a rooms button.
I accidentally typed that earlier today.
Yeah,
I was
right.
like,
You're like, oh,
what do I
there's
do?
one. So we are working diligently. I'm optimistic that that's going to go online tomorrow. So if it's not tomorrow, it'll be early next week. And so when that happens, everybody will get an email, be able to sign in and get rolling with that. So the teacher got a refresher on that. As you noticed on your way in, all of our locks and keys and everything, not quite done yet, so we're kind of last minute, all of those things. All of the buildings are secured, so all of those kind of necessary things are in place, but we're still rushing to get the final touches. We had some real supply chain issues, especially with the doors and things like that. So GFP Reagan was just putting those things in. And then, this hasn't gone away. Next week, I have cautiously optimistic. I have a meeting with a firm that does non-licensed cameras, so security cameras is still something that is being pursued. So,
The CSS work, when does that conversation, did it already happen where the 8th grade branch to 9th grade, like have the high school discussions for this year take place, or is that a little bit later?
that's a little bit later on.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we typically have 2 joint afternoon and services at high school. I think those take place in October. March. So I think October is when yeah, for sure.
I know you could take us on a little tour later of this building, but I had a chance to be in Lincoln yesterday, and this beautiful little vestibule, talk to boys what that word meant, that's super neat. It's just such a fresh look and feeling, and seeing natural light coming into the office now for the first time, and like she's so excited about being able to see people who's coming up to the sidewalk and everything, with her right there with the building. Just a really neat improvement. So
Yeah, it's really interesting that space in Lincoln is probably one of the smallest spaces that we touched, and it's one of the most dramatic changes. But in all 3 buildings now, it's going to be the same model, where the outside door is always going to be unlocked, and then once you get to the second set of doors, that's where the security takes place. And so you think about 90+% of the things that a parent comes to the school for, whether it's to pick a kid up from the dentist or whether it's to drop off lunch, all of those things can actually happen without actually being let into the building. And so it's really going to improve security and efficiency of everybody. So.
and privacy, when there's kids in the office having, issues or addressing things, and then there's parents like trying to shuffle through, it's really nice to see
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Yeah. Agreed.
So are we gonna meet the next couple months over at the other two buildings, like we did previously?
We can do that whenever you like. Typically, I think we do, in the last couple of years, we've done January, February, March. We've kind of done the different. If you want to bump those up, we certainly can do those things.
Those 2 buildings, the major changes were just the entryways, right?
Correct.
There's not a lot of.
Correct. And interior doors.
Yeah, the interior doors at Lincoln are, I didn't go inside Lexington yet, but I was very impressed by, even when we were walking through, I was like, there's no more pool noodles on the doors. Like, yes.
For sure.
Yes, it looks amazing. The little things are just really adding up, so.
Well, with what Holly said too, it could be helpful to anybody who hasn't been in buildings before, like some facilities.
And
Are.
yeah, and whenever any of you want, just text me and say, hey, you got an hour sometime, give me a tour. Garrett and I had a nice walk through a couple weeks ago. Just let me know. Glad to.
What was the staff reaction to come into North
it was, the staff reaction obviously was super positive. It was the one that really gets you is especially the kids who've been here a couple of years, the 7th and 8th graders, when they come in, they're like, their jaws just drop. Yeah, that's really, that's why we do it. Yeah. For sure.
Awesome. Amazing to think where things were like 3 years ago. We would have been having early outs next week and.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's gonna be 99 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, I'm in a non-air conditioning building now.
Well, that wasn't very smart. Huh?
I know. I said that today, I'm like, I went to.
Bring your own.
It's okay, that's a maintenance.
Great. And then we will hear from GRP a little later today.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, they're coming from another meeting,
Okay.
so. yeah.
7.3 is a standing agenda item. We did not have any board meetings or reports. So let's walk through our 23 budget.
Yeah, so if you wanna take a look at this kind of double-sided handout, this one page is what's referred to as the budget summary. So the state budget form is, I don't know, 40 pages, give or take, and it's just all kinds of messy and confusing. But this is really the nuts and bolts of it. So if you look at this top line, out to the side, it says like 10.9 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's our cash on hand as of July 1st, okay? So 10.9. The second line we have there, that's 16.0, that's our anticipated revenues for the year. Now, we did get a pretty significant setback in revenue this year, along with everybody else in the state. If you'll recall, we get in the neighborhood of $2 million in revenue from what's known as CPPRT. Well, last year we got $2 million, and the state has, over the last couple of years, basically overpaid everybody. And so now, in one fell swoop, they're bringing that all back. They're having everybody repay by drastically reducing that. So it had gone up to 2.0 million. This year's going to drop back to about $1.4 million. So that's $600,000 in revenue that we were anticipating that we're not going to get. And then next year, all of that will balance out, so it'll come back up a little bit. Probably not all the way to 2. We should see a good $300,000 or $400,000 increase after we paid the state along with everybody else. So that being said, our revenues are going to be about 16 million. That next line down is our anticipated expenditure, which is in the neighborhood of 18.7 million. Then the next line is the difference between the two. So this year we're anticipating a $2.7 billion deficit just this 1 year. And then, so at first blush, you're like, whoa, that's a big number. What's going on, right? Okay, so all of the summer work that we've already sold bonds for and put money in the bank for, the summer work that we still have with GRP Wakeman, we have about 2.7 million outstanding. Okay, and so if you take that off the books, we have a balanced budget. And again, this is a preliminary budget, we're continuing to tweak things, but that's why that discrepancy. And so then if you go on the back, that 8.2 million, that's how much money we anticipate having in the bank come the end of June. Okay, so still, historically, we've had kind of flowing between about an $8 and $10 million fund balance at the end of the fiscal year, and so that puts us very much in line with that. Now, the other caveat on this is we have in the neighborhood of $1.9 million in grant money that we will get flow to us from our solar project. Absolutely zero of that revenue. Okay. So that grant money, no idea when it will come. You can ask them about it when they get here. GRP Wakeman is in the process of finalizing all their plans with ComEd so they can get those solar panels in place and onto the ComEd grid. And so the final paperwork for all those grant funds won't start until those solar panels are in place, connected to the grid and flowing energy back into it.
So we expect that to be
And that's with the $2.7 million in facilities. Yeah.
With these numbers, with it being really heavy in the O&M, do we have to do that plan that?
The budget reduction
Yes.
plan, that's a good question. I haven't looked into that. Denise just said something to me about it. She's like, do we need, I'm like, we'll look at it later. So, and, kudos to everybody in the office, as we've changed personnel around and some responsibilities have shifted, and so, they've done a really great job getting the budget prepared for the first time in a long time.
Can you make sure that when this is shared out, like when we get closer to finalizing, publishing this, I think it's really important to have the narrative for everything that you just said written out. And whenever this numbers flow, it explains what's going on. This was anticipated. Once the grant money comes through for the project that we had to front in the beginning, that's gonna bring that number way down. And the bonds were sold for the specific purpose of these facility improvements that the money went towards. It's not like this is a oops situation.
For sure, for sure.
It's really, really important. Can you remind everybody of the timeline for the budget?
Yeah, so, by law, your budget has to be approved by the end of the first fiscal quarter. So our fiscal year begins July 1st, so you have July, August, September. So by the end of September, you have to have the final budget approved. And so we'll do that next month, which is nice because there are a lot of things that we can continue to tweak over the next 4 weeks, to make these numbers a little bit more concrete.
And then we can submit revisions as needed
Correct.
to that budget.
Correct. Yeah, for instance, last year, towards the end of the year, we sold bonds, which increased our revenue by $3 million we had anticipated. So we did a revised budget at the end of the year in May.
School budgets are probably one of the most complicated accounting puzzles of all time.
For sure, and that's why, I refer to, this one number out to the side. I refer to that as the M289 index, right? Because even as complex as school finance is, at the end of, and you look across here, there are all these different funds, and money has to be spent in a certain way out of certain funds. At the end of the day, if you've been doing this long enough, been doing this for 2 decades, you know how to be able to legally, there are a dozen different mechanisms to move money around, and so it's important to know how much money you have total to work with. That's the important piece.
Appreciate all your comments.
Oh, my pleasure, of course. And like I said, kudos to the ladies in the office for really doing a great job with this.
Alright, was that all of your, okay, student fees, let's move on to that conversation.
Yeah, so we've had this conversation a little bit before, and I gave you a little bit more information in the last update as I kind of dug around a little bit. We receive in registration fees, that's a revenue source for us, we're about 55,000. Our activity fees are about over 10,000. I know that there are districts in place that especially on the activity fee side, do caps. And so whether it's a cap, a certain, one student can't have more than, this amount, or a family can't have more than this amount. And so I think those are really good conversations to have as well.
When we talk about activity funds, or activity expenses, is that like sports participation fees?
Correct.
Clubs,
Correct.
like
Yep.
all non-curricular?
Correct. Yep.
And ours are not, like, can you remind us what the cost is?
Yeah.
Like 35 or?
35.
$35.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Yeah, they're not like a lot.
That's the- Yep.
I think a cap is important, however, I also think it's important to remember that if somebody qualifies for free and reduced, there's
Not on,
nothing there.
not on
Okay.
activity fees. So the,
So that's another option.
yeah, the rationale there is that, the reason why, there are waivers for registration fees is because, by law, everybody has a right to a
Right.
free public education. everybody doesn't have the right to play free baseball or soccer or whatever it might be. And so that's why those mechanisms don't apply to those activities.
But we could draw the line, dotted line between the two, if we were talking about putting like a family cap on, it could be that the income is at or below, household
For sure.
income is at or below where they qualify for free and reduced, then maybe there's a cap of $50 or $75 or something like that in participation fees, but I think just in general, having one, like saying you only pay one even if you pay three, like they're so low. It does cost us money to have these activities, right? We're paying for officials, we're paying for scorekeepers, we're paying more than we used to, right, based on our new contract.
For sure.
I got a question. So what is, I only mentioned this because I just had to do it, I don't know, I missed it. What is our athletic budget? You know, like how much do we anticipate spending every year?
So I believe on the.
With stipends, officials, game workers.
I think,
Yes.
I think just on the stipend end, because we just reworked that, I think it's in the neighborhood of 40,000. So then we're looking at on top of that, officials, uniforms, and workers, and so. I don't know exactly what that number would be, but my guess would be that would be another 15,000 or something.
Did we hear negative feedback from anyone or anybody feeling like that's a challenge to pay the $35 for participation? Okay. I would say at this point, my recommendation, and I want to hear everybody's thoughts, but I mean, when you look at the private sports in the area, they're significantly higher than that, like 3 or 4 times higher than that. There's still very large amounts of participation. I would hope that if that was a barrier, they'd be able to talk with us, but I also think that given the flexibility of allowing like payment plans with other fees and other expenses and things like that,
For
would
sure.
typically not turn people away. $35 when it's costing the district probably like $150 for the kid to participate. I mean, we do have to be cognizant of taxpayer money, that our purpose is education, right? And these are extracurriculars, like you said, they are built in. It's a privilege, it's an opportunity to participate. So I would hope that we would I would always hope that parents would know that if something feels like a barrier, that they would communicate with their principal. Because I feel like there's enough things in place. I know we've never turned anyone away from like a field trip or a
I would
something,
never,
but
I'm just saying as a parent, I would never come to you and say, I struggle right now, but my kid wants to play, I mean, they just fork over the money and eat a bush like that. Bush like spaghetti, bush like, you know, like we would go the lesser route before I would ever bring that up personally,
But then, in that same accord, would you then come in and like try to fill out paperwork to get a waiver for your $35?
I mean, I just paid the registration fee, it was over $200 and something for 2 kids. I'm on the board, I had no idea that was something that could be waived, because we are a family that sits right on that midline, where I do budget every single dollar, so, and I know I might have actually taken that up on it, but I'm not gonna go back and say I want it back for kind of getting, but I say to sign that waiver, I don't know, it's a small town, and it's also something that you don't want people to know. I will gladly share my story, but not everybody will. I think a cap is nice. Again, I'm taking from my personal experience. I do have a large family, so I'm fortunate that I'm kind of split in 2 different ways, and I won't be hitting all 4 of them at once, but I think there are some people that do come with 2 or 3 or more children where
So even if you have 2 kids participating, spend $70 total for the season
Mhm.
for participation.
well,
Like,
isn't it
is that-
it's each sport, right? So you
Right,
can
so
pay-
but you don't pay like, you don't have to pay now for the spring sport.
Sure, I'm just suppositioning, I mean, that's still, you're saying you've got 35 times 3 times 2 kids, possibly 3, and that can be a lot, even, I think of things over time. My cable bill is $1,000 a year, I think of it that way, it makes me sick. I think of it $100 a month, maybe not so bad, you're right, but I still always put a bigger number so that I
young kids would now see the that side of it in my new role. I think it, for those families that might have and that might have multiple participation, and I think the girls basketball last year, one of the teams had 7 girls, and at one point they didn't even play in a tournament. Like, we don't want to turn people away, and sometimes when it comes down to it, they might get turned away, whether they know it or not. So I think we could do a cap, a family cap, of maybe $150. That's just my suggestion. Because I will tell you, when I went here to Northbrook, I would have never been able to play sports because my dad was on strike for a year and a half. You know what I mean? It wasn't the.
That's where I say, like, do we need to take a step
I think we need to put a.
so that well, the only problem with a cap is if you have the financial ability to pay for it and it's not a problem to you, you're not gonna get it from the people that would rather not take it from someone else. So that's what I'm saying, I think if we're gonna say there's a cap, then maybe it's, we use whatever those numbers look like for the waivers for the registration fees and use that same concept and apply it to extracurriculars so that it's not, that it's in the way for somebody, but we're also not missing out on potential revenue and reallocating curricular dollars to cover the cost of officiants and stuff for families that otherwise would have had absolutely no problem paying the amount.
As you mentioned, I think it's well advised to keep in mind taxpayers. This is extracurricular. And I don't know if I can go out to the taxpayers of this community and say, well, we're gonna waive this at a certain, or we're gonna cap it at a certain point because we wanna be the nice guys.
I agree that it's extracurricular, but it's part of the school.
Yeah.
So.
And they are paying taxes.
Half and half there.
Is there legalities on?
It's a great question. It's a great question.
No.
I can.
We do, I know it's being done where I'm from.
Okay, so you already did that.
The same waivers that are in place in Ocean Families for everything, class fees, extracurricular fees, everything. So whether that's like at a certain point at 50% discount, if you're at this amount of money, or if you're at this amount of household income, it can be completely waived. And that's where I feel like, I think we're all speaking, we want needs-based help, so a child is not said no to if they can't afford it, but we're also not saying, but let's just say we'll cover it for everybody when probably 85% of the people could do it. I mean,
I
there's.
feel like, this is just my opinion, but I feel like I'm not able to make a decision one way or the other without knowing, like, if we kind of estimate, like, look at numbers, like she was kind of saying we still need the income and we still have to pay for all these officials and things, and like, I don't have that kind of like basis to know how much we can just give.
So just kind of.
So I don't know if I can just say, yeah, let's just do that.
Yeah, so I mean, kind of in general numbers, to estimate these things, if 60% of our students across the board would qualify for free or reduced lunches, and the total amount that we're talking about collecting for activity fees is $10,000, then.
Like we have been, or?
Correct. That's what we did last year, it was like
Okay.
10,500.
Okay.
So you could roughly move it maybe to $6,000 instead.
Yeah, so the possible loss in income would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $6,000.
But it also sets a precedent. I think whatever we decide on has to be something we're willing to stick with. So you have to think about the cumulative total of that. So it might be 5,000 this year, but it could be with the costs that go up with officials and expenditures and all the other things. Like it could be that the next year it's 7 and the next year it's 11 or whatever. I just want to make sure whatever we decide, we're paying attention to the financial impact and not getting to the point where.
Yeah, that's where I just can't throw out a number like 150 cap, like without knowing like what that does to us, like financially. But that's a hard
Could we all
number to
agree
just
that we
make up
would
a
want
number.
to keep the fee the same cost as it is today with some form of reduced or potentially waived fees that are needs-based? Like, does everybody feel like not talking about the numbers, but is the concept what everyone's thinking?
Yeah, you know, I can live with that, and I wonder how well known it is that, you know, fees could be waived, we simply have to ask. I mean, you know, I don't remember reading that or seeing that, or, so,
So if we're all in agreement that we do think that sports should join the other types of fees and that there's some sort of opportunity for people to apply for needs-based reduction and or waiver, is it gonna affect us to push the vote off to next month and you could come back with some proposals for us to look at?
Fantastic.
With the financial
Yep.
impact of what those would look like?
Yep, love to.
And I also think having a more solid number, to Holly's point, would be nice to see kind of what's the total cost of sports, cause we asked that once years ago.
I only know because I just
When
had
we
to do
brought on
it.
additional sport on, cause there people
Yeah.
wanted to have soccer, which I think is wonderful, and I would love if we even had more sports or sports for younger kids, but I think it is important to know how much they do cost.
Well, and especially now that we've added sixth grade, what's gonna be the impact? What is the coaches, the stipends, the uniforms, like in my new, like,
And you see it from that perspective.
yeah, like I'm now like seeing it from the administration side of things, so it really does hit home.
But is there also a way that those sports, for example, soccer or basketball, can do like a fundraiser to help with those costs as well?
And a lot of them do, like if they want additional things, like if they really want to petition for new uniforms, like some of them have said, we've said, well, you have uniforms, but we really want new uniforms because they're super old, like they would kind of do that. We've never had them fundraise like for the registration costs, but the individual like add-on equipment type stuff. Soccer did that, didn't they? The first year they covered their own t-shirts, I think, and they did some fundraisers to
They did
help
it a
because
few
it
years
wasn't
ago.
unbudgeted sport when we added it in.
Well, I feel like what she's suggesting too, it's maybe not necessarily covering registration costs because you can't truly say that just cause we put a $35 registration fee, that's actually the same cost for all those different sports, cause some cost more than others and some, so it's just a random number, so I think you're talking just for the sport in general.
To help like upgrade the things
Yeah.
that are on it. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Well, because we don't have a policy on fundraising. We don't.
There's a policy in press on this.
Well, but it's like, it's, it's like if a teacher does like,
We don't restrict
Yeah.
teams from fundraising,
Yeah.
absolutely. But maybe that would be a fun way to encourage it. I know when Christopher played sixth grade basketball, his coach said, this is so neat. This is the same uniform that my 24-year-old son wore when he played here. I was like, oh,
yep,
is that neat though? Like, we probably should have some sort of rotation, like every 20 years we get new
Yeah,
uniforms.
we do now. We do now.
yeah, when
I
we played
didn't
them,
hear that.
Yeah, no,
last
they're
year, I was like,
legit 20
oh, we
some
played
year
with that.
olds
Yep.
basketball uniform.
Yep.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like
Oh, yeah.
pretty old.
yeah.
I'm like, how much is a t-shirt? Like, can we just buy t-shirts for
probably wouldn't be a this year question, it'd probably be too hard to figure out, but I know that, baseball does, if you pledge your time in certain ways, some of the fees are reduced or.
Oh, I do like that, yeah, we have to like work a shift in the concession stand or something and like,
Then you have to fill out volunteer
then some of our
form.
fees, so
Somebody
that,
just has to track all of it then.
well, I mean, you sign in,
Then
you work, the
But
shift.
then you
Right,
have
but then
to-
I'm saying like, if
Oh,
you,
yeah.
cause they charge the fee when your kid starts
Gotcha,
playing,
yes,
so then it becomes like a
secretarial.
reimbursement situation
Correct.
if you didn't do it, yeah, so then they have to like manage all of the outing back and forth.
And then
I
you
still
said,
like that as far as keeping your community more involved, if it had a better impact, not even just for the money, but getting people in the door to see the work that happens.
Yeah, I like that idea.
but then you also have to have them fill out volunteer paperwork and they have to have a background check. and
They would have to do background checks and fingerprint
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff.
Which is an expense to the district.
To work a concession stand too?
Yes.
you
Oh,
mean?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I just was curious.
Yeah. It would be a
Anything's-
crossing guard,
Yeah.
yep, every bit of it. So I think we would wanna look at the cost analysis, I mean, if it's waiving the $35, it would still have to be enough of a benefit, like, it would have to be covering something like the scorekeeper that we otherwise would be paying in order to make it balanced.
Well, and maybe the other thing that we can do is track the numbers of participants from last year and what we earned, and then figure out what the cost is of.
I think it'd be good to look at what the total collection cost was, number of kids that participated, the approximate cost to have those programs, but then also if you can layer in of the families that participated last year, how many would have qualified for either a reduced rate or a whole rate, that would be the most ideal.
But I have
She's
one-
giving you a homework assignment, it
Oh.
sounds like.
That's
I don't know that we
definitely-
have, I don't know that we have that last data, but I can.
I guess
Even if you
I'm a
could pull
little-
like a couple teams together, get us a feeling of the percentage, cause I don't think it is a situation where our kids that are on our free and reduced are not playing sports, cause I don't,
I would agree with that.
I think they are.
Well, considering the whole district qualifies for free lunch this year.
That, I was
Good
actually
Lord.
just gonna suggest that, I was gonna say, is this something that like we have to change this year? Or can we look at the numbers and do some of the calculations of like the students that qualify, or like where we would come out at the end of this year if with adding sixth grade and all these
Right.
like little changes, what can we do? Cause I just, again, I feel uneducated to
Right,
just
we
throw
need
out
more.
a number
Mhm.
and
I
say
think I'm
this
making
is a
college
cap.
credit.
Well, I guess I'm a little concerned
I just had to do
too.
one.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking like, oh, if we lose, $1,500 or a couple thousand here and there, for a sports program, that's a lot of money.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a lot of, equipment that can be bought, that's a lot of $35 an hour to work a game official,
Right.
like,
That's why I say whatever
I
we
mean,
do, I
so,
don't
I
wanna
mean-
like, cause if I could afford to pay it, I don't wanna set us up where we have the families that it's not going to hinder just not
and
paying
even if it
it.
involves somewhat of a sacrifice on the family's part.
Yeah. It
That's
is.
part of it too, every parent sacrifices for their kids,
And they make that choice.
yeah.
I do think though, I like Brenda's point and I think Amanda's as well, that whatever we already have in place today in regards to waivers and, reductions and whatever that looks like, I think it would be really important to keep that information front and center, especially because we don't have lunch waiver forms this year, that it might not be top of mind for someone to know that that help is there, but I think that would be really important. I'd like to see that come back out again. Okay, so we will have more information and a lovely report from Brad.
Evidently so.
Even just
sorry we just gave you homework.
take all
again.
roster and look at the percentage of kids that would have like cross-referenced and let's just see.
Sure.
I wanna make sure that we aren't keeping our kids from participating because of cost, but I
Right.
don't think we do based on the cost being what it is, but I think it's important to analyze.
And I'm gonna throw one more thing in there. I don't think it's cost, I think it's transportation, I think it's, how am I gonna get them to and from practice, how, I need
It's the
them at
time
home,
they're
because
missing
I work
from
till
work
5 and
to-
the little sister comes home from kindergarten and I'm in 5th grade or 6th grade, I'm needed at home. I think those are more of the stumbling blocks for kids participating than the $35. And those things, of course, we can't do anything about,
Right.
that's not our decision.
So great dialogue.
For sure.
To be continued next month, unless anyone else wanted to share something they didn't share yet. Did we all, everybody good? Okay. Press policy. This is, I think we covered it a little bit last time, kind of talking about it, but this is what we subscribe to as part of Illinois Association of School Boards. Press policy is essentially the district-wide policies that are vetted and, by lawyers specific to school code and law, and so instead of us trying to manage each of our own policies, we, along with almost every school district in the state,
Hundreds and hundreds, yes.
subscribe to press policy, as our policy, as our legal guide for what we do and don't do within the district. So every time they publish a new one, this 4 times a year. We have to look at those changes, have a first reading information, and then the second meeting, we need to vote on those, and accept those. So in this one, there were no substantial changes. Most of the time, it's like they use a different verb somewhere, or they reference a different case in the footnotes. It's typically rare that there's some whole brand new content that's covered in press. So, the changes were outlined in the board information that was sent last meeting, I believe. Are there any questions about it? Does anyone wanna delve in any deeper on it? No? Okay, so then we just need a, motion to approve press policy 112 as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve press policy 112 as presented.
A second?
Second.
A second. Roll call.
Rapp,
Yes.
Landers,
Yes.
Comitas,
Yes.
Spinoza,
Yeah.
Haas,
Yes.
Schrader,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Okay, let's talk mascots.
Wanna
Oh, yes, our
Have our-
friends are here.
have our
Let's have them
friends-
jump in
have our
first.
friends hop in.
Yeah.
You want to come up and introduce yourselves?
Sure.
We have a few new board members too,
I
so
saw
I think
this.
it would be great if you could just kind of give us your 30-second
Spiel.
Okay.
spiel about.
Do you mind if we
like,
move the
why
chairs
you're-
closer, or
Yes,
do you want
come
us to stand in the
forward. No,
middle?
come forward.
All right.
Sit right in the middle.
About
Just
who
do
you
it,
are,
right
what you
here, so
do.
you can.
Yeah.
I wanna sneak the.
You can sneak on that
You
side.
Yeah.
can, you can sit wherever you want if you got some of that cornbread in your pocket.
Yes, thank you. I apologize for being a little late. We're at a, what was it? Basically it's all the unions like get together dinner thing. So we're with you. We met your BA for the Carpenters Union that covers this region and just that kind of stuff. So that when they show up, they're always nice, even though we have all union people. But it's good when you actually know them, so it helps a little bit. But just so everybody knows, I know we got a couple new board members, but Scott Engstrom with GRP Wegman, we've been working on the renovation projects that the district has undertaken over the last 2 years. The HVAC project 2 years ago, and then this year was more security driven with some roofing, and then we're also working on the solar, and we'll talk a little bit about that as far as where the solar stands at this point. But it's been an exciting 2 years, 3 years I guess at this point, looking at some additional projects for you guys as well that we'll talk about, and I also have Alyssa here as well.
Yeah, Alyssa, as Scott mentioned, I've been the development engineer on the job for the past 2 years, but I'm going to be returning to school in the fall for my master's in marriage and family therapy at NIU. So I will no longer be attending board meetings as frequently, so you might not see my face as much, but
That's
it's been exciting to work with the district though, so it's been great, and it's nice to see all the secure entrances built and everything. It's great to see it in person after all the design work that went into it.
I think it's important to explain too in our relationship with them, you're kind of like an extension in a way of like a facilities and operations arm for the district, and it the expenses and what we choose to take on and what we don't. They just present the ideas, work them through for us. If we wanna go, we don't wanna go. It's not like we're not paying for the consultation each time we talk with you. I think it's important for board members to understand that this is really just a partnership, and where we want to pull the trigger on things and where we need to ask you your expertise on things. It's really, I think it's truly a partnership, so.
Yeah, which actually, building on that, I love that you said that. I should get that all down in writing. Can I get that video? That would
It'll
be,
be on
that would be a
YouTube.
great thing to
It'll be
say.
on.
Because that really is, she really hit it on the tee, because we will look at anything and everything that you guys have ever asked us to look at. Like even when we presented solar to you guys, it was, okay, solar's out here. It's an opportunity. Do you want to do it or do you not? Here's the information. And that kind of leads perfectly into, where you guys have asked us to move forward was kind of like a 5-year plan. And what do you guys want to take on? You've taken care of the behind the scenes stuff with roofs and HVAC, taking care of the security, and now it's kind of where does your next step lead? The items that have kind of been brought to our attention as far as a ranking system that we've looked at with your guys' feedback, kind of how we did it is we did, here's our thoughts as far as things you should do. That was something that Alyssa worked on with engineering and myself, and then we presented to you guys as a district and kind of rank where you guys see things. So the main focus that you guys have asked us to look at for summer 2024 would be like ceiling upgrades, flooring upgrades, something going on behind me.
Could be,
Faces
I,
at you.
Oh.
I have kids in the other room.
I was wondering, I'm like, did the
Just
kids
have
come in, are they
Yeah.
ready to go? And then also, creating vestibules, because especially here, if you guys can walk around, you can see the vestibules are not fire rated as far as smoke transfer if there was ever a fire in any space, and that's supposed to be your secure way out of the building. Plus you've got places where it just, there's a piece of missing glass or something else is going on. So those are the sort of things that you guys have asked us to look at for summer 2025. And then we've got lists of things to look at for 26, 27, 28. And what I always approach these things is this is a 5-year plan and they're fluid. We've got a plan, but if something comes up or if something changes, because you never know what the state can throw at you or what you guys notice as you get feedback, it's something that could move up or move down accordingly. It looks like you actually have the report right in front of you, so that's perfect. And then the other thing I want to talk to you about is this summer. This summer actually went really well. We've had a few issues with some supply issues with some glass and some doors and some locks, but all things are in. Obviously, students are here. Things are going really well. It's just a matter of rekeying some things because one of your goals was to do a master key for everything. And as much as you tell them, this is the code, this is it, a lock set may show up that's not coded right. So then you got to bring a locksmith in and get them all right. So we're actually going through that process right now. I think hopefully has everybody had a chance to see all the secure entrances at all the buildings? And
No,
We're gonna
We're
see,
gonna-
I
Yeah.
haven't seen all of it, we're gonna see
Okay.
it tonight.
Oh, you are? Oh, well, that's exciting because it is pretty exciting. And I mean, it just looks really good too, besides the premise of why you guys did that, but it also, I think, is still very inviting for what you guys have done everywhere. And then the other question is probably solar that you guys want to hear about. So we are waiting on ComEd on 2 of your buildings to give us their final clearance on that. What we're seeing with ComEd, which is a little frustrating to be completely honest with you, I just had this meeting earlier this week with another school district with solar. So when it comes to transformers, the transformer, is what brings the power off the grid. So the power lines, transformer transforms it into what you use. There's a size rating on the transformer. So I'm just going to use 100 because that's the simplest way I can explain it. But let's say that thing is rated for 100, but your building, after you've done your HVAC improvements, and they said, okay, this transformer is sized for 100, but you really need to pull 110 to be able to run your buildings. They gave the green light on that. Everything's fine because even though it's rated for that, they know that it can handle 100, 120. It's actually usually a 20% realm that they have on that. However, when you're doing solar, in return, if you say we're going to put 120 back on the transformer that the department said that it was perfectly fine with, they may say we're not going to let you put 120 back on because they just did that to another district, and then they require you guys to pay for a transformer upgrade to put that much on. And it's incredibly frustrating because everybody knows it can handle it. It's been handling it for the last 2 years in your buildings. However, I think they see this as an opportunity to have you guys then pay for a transformer, because if they'd have done it when we were doing the HVAC, they paid for the transformer. So it's a very frustrating thing, and it's completely different departments. So it's not even like the person that we dealt with last year with ComEd or 2 years ago for the transformer size can talk to this person on the other side. It's ComEd, they're a big beast, and we're waiting to hear back from that. So that may affect some sizing in 1 or 2 buildings depending on what they say when they come back for that. But we do have the information back for Lincoln, and that transformer is fine. But if you remember, Lincoln was the one that we were already only going to be able to do, I think it was like 75% of that one because of the roof situation. So we're waiting on a couple more things on the structural engineer, but then we'll be able to start putting panels up there. And actually the panels are here. They're in storage. They're not here on your premise, but they're within 50 miles of here. And we're just waiting for ComEd to give us that green light or to make that decision on a transformer. And then if they do require a transformer upgrade, we would talk to you guys about that. But even if you move forward with a transformer upgrade and we're waiting on ComEd on the transformer, we can still put the solar panels up there. We'll just be waiting for them to bring the transformer before we're allowed to turn it fully on. So it's ComEd dealing with them. It's dealing with just the solar industry, and a little bit the way I always describe the solar industry is it's cart horse, You kind of have to decide which one's in front today. But supposedly ComEd's gonna be back to us shortly, but that's what they always say, and as soon as we hear back from them, obviously we'll get the update to Brian, and he'll get it to everybody on the board. Is there anything else you guys would like
So,
to?
so with your crystal ball, I'm not holding you to anything, is it fairly reasonable that at least some of our buildings will have solar installed this fall?
Yes, I do believe that. I really don't see an issue. I would love to just start putting them up there, to be completely honest with you, but I would hate to put them up there and then, with the transformer, for example, if you guys decided, so like, I was just at Polo School District this week. The ComEd got back to them on their situation, so at their high school, they need to upgrade their transformer. And it's $30,000, and it's $30,000 regardless if it's a big transformer, small transformer, it's just a set cost they charge you. So they're going to do it there because it makes sense for them to do it at their high school, but at their elementary building, instead of being at 100%, we're gonna drop it down to 93%, because that extra 7% that we're getting is not worth the $30,000 transformer upgrade. So we look at that as, if you guys remember those tables I always showed you with, here's your rate, here's the rate you're gonna get, we've added another category because of ComEd now, you gotta love this, it's the blended rate. So it's taking, like in Polo's situation, it's taking 93% is going to be at this rate because it's coming off the solar. The other 7% is going to be off that rate that I kept talking to you guys about how rates are going to go up over the next 20 years, and hedging that 7%. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas at their high school, they were dropping down to like 70% and 30%. So that hedge, the rate gap became big enough that it justified spending the $30,000. So that's what we would do for you guys too. And then you can make a decision. If you decide you just don't want to spend the $30,000, it just goes down and you get the money back for the solar panels that we're not installing.
We're hoping that doesn't have to be an issue at all.
That is the hope. That is the hope. And it's frustrating because the other thing is Ameren and ComEd don't even look at it the same. I mean, there's no consistency because basically they own the transformer and they get to say what they can do with it. So it's
Do we
just-
get to keep the old one if we have to buy a new one?
No, because you're just buying it for them. So it's a valid question.
Right?
Yes, you're buying it for them. Now, on the flip side, it is beneficial for them to own it because if it ever acts out, it's their responsibility to get you a new one. Because I do have a district, and Brad, I believe at Erie, you guys own some transformers, right? Because it came in at one building and then distributed to their 3 buildings. So if they were ever to lose one of those other 3 that distributed to their other 3 buildings, they wouldn't have power until they could get one. And ComEd does keep a lot of them, whereas otherwise, like, I mean, you guys know the electrical thing we dealt with last year, it's the same thing with transformers. Leland's switchgear and stuff, it took 53 weeks to get in. So they'll have air conditioning this year, but it took 53 weeks for us to get our electrical.
So is that
here.
like another factor to consider, like that, like if we have to purchase one and it feasibly like looks down the road like to be the better choice, but then now we have to consider like that we would be owning it and that could be problematic, or?
You still wouldn't own it.
We would own it.
You
Oh,
just,
we're still
you
replacing
just
it.
Yes.
Okay, we're
gracefully
just
give them
replacing it.
$30,000 and
Okay.
they bring you a new
Upgrading it.
transformer.
Just right
You
there.
We
pay
did that
for
at
the
the
upgrade.
campground.
Yeah.
So
did
then
that.
how do you
Yeah.
own one then?
Well, it all depends on how the feed was originally
Okay.
in. Yeah.
Okay.
So most people don't own them. If
Okay.
you can avoid owning them, I would encourage it.
Yeah.
But there's some advantages like 1 meter charge, things like that. So it can add up over time. And really sometimes it's just how it's set up. I mean, so it can vary.
The Erie reference was in reference to one of the worst renewable energy projects ever conceived, and I had nothing to do with it.
So before you-
It was before me.
We had nothing to do with it either.
No.
But that's just the whole transformer, and the advantage they had, actually, weird advantage, when they did the worst one that he's talking about with the wind turbine, it could feed all 3 schools. Whereas if they didn't have it that way, so I don't know if they did it when they did that, it would have only been able to feed 1, and you wouldn't need a wind turbine for each school. So advantage there for a minute, but
Right.
disadvantage if anything ever goes, and now that wind turbine I think is down,
Yeah.
so that advantage is gone too.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions on this.
Yeah.
So,
Do you want me to hand one of those out, or does everybody have one? I
I
brought
think
one for everybody.
No, 'cause I moved around.
so your column is the second to last on the right, and Artie's the one on the right.
Yep.
I'm curious to know know in some of the areas where there's dramatic difference, where something was a 1 to you and a 4 to us, or vice versa. Were there any, when you rated your categories, were there any in the ones that were ones because there was a safety concern?
No, actually, there was not.
Okay.
We did, the one that got pushed down, was bleachers, but if you saw the note on that, we were just concerned about your new floor, but I think you've been fine in the past, so that's why it did move down. The other ones we had, there was some interior door replacement,
Which I wanna disagree with you a little bit.
okay,
When I assigned a 1 to the replace interior doors because here at Northbrook where there were fire rated hallways, we added the lock sets that allow the teachers to lock the doors from inside and, you know, but we didn't replace the doors themselves, and they have the trophy cases, and I know from talking with your teachers that they're always concerned about that because the trophy cases are essentially glass with cardboard, so I would put them as a safety item, but you can't, it gets messy to do that until you do the fire rated corridor because it's kind of the cart before the horse situation.
But that's important for us to know. I mean, it's not just aesthetic. I mean, there's some safety component behind the reasoning why. Okay.
Yeah, that was, otherwise I think the other ones were just more opinion.
yeah, and some of them come down to opinion, like flooring, ceiling top, I mean, some are safety and some are like, okay, well, this floor has been here since the original construction of this building and it's time to do that. That's also why it does say various, cause it's not like we're blanketly saying do it all, cause you have done a few classrooms or a few areas here and there. We've evaluated the entire building and, you know, have layouts, and that's what will be presented to you in your September board meeting, like, here is where we're suggesting doing the flooring, here is where we're suggesting doing the ceiling. Because in some places you've done some stuff over the years, and there's no sense in replacing something that still has value to you guys and looks good.
Very good.
Well, I have a question regarding, like, for example, the restroom renovation.
Okay.
They're both in the original buildings of Blackstone and Lincoln. What is the restroom renovations that, like you guys had on there? It's in the blue, sorry. It's 29 and 39.
So restroom renovations is, in this situation, what we'd be looking at is a complete gut of your restrooms and basically bringing them to what you would want to do
Is it
right
because
back.
they may not be accessible? Like if,
That would be addressed as well, as
Okay.
making them accessible.
okay.
And see, restrooms is one of those interesting ones, honestly, between district to district, is where do you rank that? Like, your restrooms are still working, but they also, you don't feel the greatest when you walk into some restrooms. And sometimes they get moved down, sometimes they get moved up, because, and then you
People see
throw
don't,
ADA.
some people don't see the importance of them.
Right,
You go in there and do your job and then you get out.
that's true.
Sorry.
So I maybe missed the end of when Teresa was asking about the safety, like, as far as how you ranked them. So like, just for example, like the, display cases and stuff like that, like, what, those you guys ranked number 1, or ranked a 1, like, what was the reason for something like that?
So when I ranked it as a 1, it was more knowing that it's either a true safety concern or a perceived safety concern. If an intruder were to come into the building, let's say they got past the doors or whatever, the concern was just like, what barrier do I have in my classroom? Because I can lock this door, but then if they decide to break the glass, you know, are we safe truly,
Gotcha.
kind of? So that was kind of the mentality when I was assigning that a 1, but I know even when we were looking at it last year, that's sort of where the barrier came, was the fire rated corridors, because just with code requirements and things like that, if you're not willing to invest in the projects all at once, it's hard to get around certain things, for the safety of the students, obviously. But yeah, that was kind of the rationale at the time, and you know, with us already having secure entrances, you hope it never gets to the point where they're actually getting to the classrooms, so, you know, there's that barrier of safety, but I wanted to just add the asterisk that, like,
Sure.
that could be considered a safety item, it's not just purely aesthetic.
Yeah.
So when you bring forth like the fire rated corridors are obviously one and both. When that comes to us, I'm assuming then that you go, okay, when we do this, pulling this piece and this piece together makes sense because doing the doors at the same time as the corridor, like, right, like you'll tell us when a project makes sense to group things together.
Yeah, because obviously with certain things, it's like the mobilization costs, like you're already gonna have carpenters here, try to get it done together.
Right.
Some of that doesn't matter as much because even at Northbrook with the amount of doors, there's still, between the 6th grade hallway and the 7th and 8th grade hallway, there's a number of doors that would be included in that with the safety cases too. So I think that their mobilization costs wouldn't be as significant when you're looking at it versus doing this summer versus next summer, et cetera. But of course, we always try to counsel you guys because money's always an important resource, and we want to make sure you guys are allocating it as best as possible.
Is there anything on the horizon as far as like grant money goes or anything new and exciting? I know we weren't even looking at solar when you brought that to us. Is there anything in?
The LED lights at Northbrook, because that's the one that you hadn't done yet, because we knew in anticipation you might be doing the ceiling at some point. There'll be grants for those,
Okay.
especially new fixtures. The $50,000 maintenance grant just came out again, which I think is due at some point in September, right, Brad? I don't even remember.
Yep.
That was turned around, so little things like that come out, but you've done the major energy driven stuff. There'll be a little bit when we get, if you do 26 and 28 with the HVAC type stuff, and 5 item number is what they are. They're not in order, but they're in the orange there. There'd be some major, maybe some small grants from ComEd and stuff, but nothing that's like the big driver like on the solar situation.
Okay. So what's next steps with you guys? You said you're back at our September meeting.
As long as we're allowed to come, but that would be, yeah, that would be the plan. So we've actually had contractors walk. They weren't able to get us the numbers as quickly as they would normally because they were all in the end of the year crunch, specifically asbestos abatement side of things. Because you do have asbestos abatement when it comes to the flooring. You've got some 9x9 tiles and some tiles that just need to be addressed. So we're getting those numbers back. And then once we have all that, there'll be a package for you guys to review and decide if you want to approve it.
Okay. Good?
Super good.
Anybody got questions? This is like, I know for some of us that like, this is so cool. Like this is just really, I mean, I work in a massive school district that doesn't even have this put together in any kind of format like this, and to be able, before you guys were here, we were talking about how different the school district looked 3 years ago compared to today, you know, inside and out.
Yeah.
Like just the security, having that level of security and just peace of mind in place, but then also the aesthetics of walking in and just feeling like you're in a fresh new place. And Brad was sharing some of the reactions of the kids as they walk in the door, and
Yeah.
it just feels really good. So.
Well, and the things that I mean, honestly, to throw it back at your teams that you've had, like your summer painting crews, and it's not, I mean, yeah, we would love to take all the credit, but you guys are doing a lot of things to cost effectively use your money, get things done, make things fresh. Like, it's a cool feeling when you walk back into I mean, even I got it when, I don't go to school here, but when I came in earlier, I'm like, yeah, no, this looks really nice, this flows well, I love the painting you guys did, the gym floor stuff, I mean, yeah, it really pops in all these places, so,
Thank you much. We appreciate you being here.
all right,
We'll see you
thank you,
next month.
see you next month.
Thank you.
Safe travels.
Well, you'll see me.
I was about to say, I might.
Unless it's still
We'll see.
working with us part-time while going to school, but I don't think she'll be here.
Yes.
Can we sign her up for when she graduates?
That's
Yeah.
a big switch.
I still have
Can we
Brad's
have
number,
first
so we'll have to
dibs?
see.
That is a big switch, like marriage.
Oh yeah,
Like,
I guess we could take like 5 minutes to ask about my career decision.
hey, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, I get that reaction a lot, but I appreciate all the support from the district and Brad
Melissa's
as well.
one of those
So,
people that she's great at whatever she does.
thank you. So,
So you'll have a job before you even,
It's like,
graduate.
look, we'll sign her up right now.
Get
What
her
are
own
like the
sign?
2 you plan?
For sure.
Best
Thank
of
you.
luck. I graduated last year.
yeah,
In
I
marriage and family.
thank you. I saw your name actually on the website for the advertisement when I was applying, so I was like, it's really cool to see the connections and everything. It's great to
Best of
know.
luck.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks everyone.
See you
ya.
later. All right, last item on our agenda
Definitely, thank you.
before the tour mascot facility.
Yeah, and so, really with each of these, just kind of an initial conversations, and it kind of lumped them here because these are conversations that can go a lot of different ways. So let's start with the mascot first, right? And so one of the things that I've had kind of conversations with people as I've kind of, gone around the campus is, again, talking about kind of that coordination and, being on the same page. We have 3 different mascots for 3 different buildings. We have multiple color schemes, and so if, as a parent, if I have a 3rd grader, I'm not gonna buy something that's blue and, and yellow, and then 2 years later when they're in Northbrook, I have to buy something that's red again. And so, just some conversations about maybe consolidating, color schemes or even consolidating mascots in different buildings. And so, if there's absolutely no appetite for the board to have me facilitate those conversations at other levels, then there's no sense me doing it. But just to kind of get some thoughts or feedback on that.
I can't remember if you mentioned this in your comments or if I just filled in the blanks in my own mind, but I do think, in my opinion, this should be thrown back to the teachers in the buildings, the kids in the buildings, the families in the buildings. I really would love to see, because I do think that there's a lot of history around what they have, and in some places there's somewhat permanent fixture things that,
Sure.
are there that you wanna be respectful of, but, again, I pull a lot from my professional references, but I'm in a district of 23 schools and each has their own color scheme and their own logos and their own everything, and they're just tied together under the district. But like the district doesn't have a logo here. You've sort of created one with the M289 and the colors and the square and all of that. But I would love to feel confident in saying that the decisions for this come from the people that live and walk in those buildings every day.
I feel like with all the work that we've done in the last 3 years, it's kind of like our own rebranding as it is, and to me, it doesn't matter the history, sorry guys, of a lion versus a bear versus a Spartan. I find it very strange that they're all different, but that's just me.
Well, I think going back, having been, and this was my home district, when it was neighborhood schools, that was part of it. Like, it was mascots based on your neighborhood. So, like, to me, like, I think it's okay, but I also, from going from a district that I just was at, it was all one. Like, we were all the links, which really helped with like spirit and everything. So like, I have mixed feelings on it. I feel like there is a history, like Teresa said, but I also see of having one mascot. But I agree. I think throw it out there to the staff, the community, the students, and let them, let them give their opinion. Like, I will say, currently I am at a co-op, and we had one mascot now. Well, we are actually going to create a new mascot for the co-op of the 2 teams, so that we're not wearing one or the other, we're wearing a new mascot with a new color, like, you know what I mean? So.
From a color scheme perspective, I mean, using that logic, we should all be the purple and gold then, because everybody will end up there anyways. But we just spent a whole bunch of money redoing our gym floor. And red, so we're not changing it.
And that's actually a very good idea, because they actually, like,
Can't
Amboy
change
just
the
went through that a couple years ago. So even though it's one district, the junior high was blue and white, which I think it set people off even after all those years, because they were the Vikings and they were blue and white, which is the rival, the Newman Comets. But now they all went red and black. So like it follows. I think they had those same discussions.
And full disclosure, I don't have any skin in this game.
Yeah,
But I think it's a good conversation, and I love the idea of just having everybody involved, get representatives from a lot of different tables, do some surveys, have some conversations. Just
throw it up.
Cause I feel like this is another one of those where, like, even just us chatting about it, there's gonna be so many different opinions, and like, some people are gonna feel very strongly and some are not, and one way or the other, and so, like, having all those different people come together, but the question is, like, how do you form, is this like a committee, and like, how do you pick who's on it, or, you know, cause I don't want anyone to feel,
I think we need to survey first to
Survey.
get an idea. I mean, to me, it always made sense. High school's the Trojans, we are the Spartans, we're, you know, all the Greek city-states, we could call them, you know. But I never understood the Lynx and the Bears, or, I was like, how'd they come up with them out of Spartans and Trojans? Shouldn't we have something else
But
there?
it was, a lot of it was back when it was neighbor, you know, what I mean,
And like I said, I think when you look at bigger districts,
Trojan is.
it is, everyone does, like I came from DeKalb School District, my growing up, every school had its own identity, its own color,
Mine
its own.
did too. I
Yeah.
mean, I think we were maybe still the same mascot, but we all had different colors.
And so maybe and that's an option too, like maybe there's something in between where there's this common color of red, but maybe it's the red and blue at one and the red and yellow at one and the red, you know, whatever that looks like too. I mean, there's so many options to explore. I also think it would be really important prior to that conversation happening, that we know what are the things, the high ticket items that have been branded, like the signs out front, the, you know, the gym floor, or the whatever there is as far as inventory of things that have been branded, cause I would hate to spend a whole bunch of money in the wrong order just based on that.
For sure.
How long is, not to sound like I'm wanting to change it, but how long is our gym floor, like the paint that is done on that?
What we just did, you do every decade.
10 years? Okay.
Does Lincoln have marking in the middle of theirs?
They never used to in the old gym, I can't say that I've.
I don't think
No.
so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Blackstone gym is very.
And again, not something that we're looking to do overnight,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
definitely start those conversations.
And even if you throw it back at the buildings to figure out how they wanna elicit some of that conversation
Yep.
too, cause they built these like PBIS programs for, you know, behavior, a lot of them around their mascot too.
Like, are
so-
they using paws
Pause,
Yeah,
in Lincoln?
Yep, for sure.
so you don't wanna disrupt the apple cart if it doesn't have to be
And
either.
especially
course.
something that's been ingrained in them.
Right, so.
Another thing for you to do, Brad.
No, these are all great things, I love it. And so then kind of a similar thought with facilities, right? So GRP Wagman was just here talking about, you know, and they have given us this kind of, you know, facilities list. You know, one of the things that, you know, in a perfect world, we'd have, you know, brand new schools and, you know, but you can't build anything, you know, a school for, you know, less than $350 or $400 a square foot, and well, you know, 100,000 square foot facility like Northbrook at $400 a square, it's $40 million, right? Just for one building. So I think we're trying to really address this in a very responsible way. But still, if you look at this, the grand total of what GRP has said, hey, this is how we could update the campus. You know, you're looking at a big number, right? You're looking at, you know, $10 or $12 million probably. We don't have that in the bank, and then I don't think it would be responsible or prudent to pull all of our reserves to really try to attack most of this. So I think the conversation needs to be, you know, are we going to address this, you know, in a measured way as we can, you know, chip away at it? Do we want to, you know, possibly look at selling, like actually having a referendum to sell some bonds to say, hey, look, here's the list of things, and here's what we want to do, instead of, do we want to, there are kind of a variety of different ways that we can move forward with this. And so, again, it's just me trying to start that conversation and kind of ask you, in what way would you like to have that conversation? Start those conversations here in this room, possibly down the road involve other people, depending on what direction we want to go. Really just looking for your feedback on some, and again, not to decide anything.
Right.
Right, just to kind of start the conversation.
I do have a question on the referendum thing, and I feel like maybe this is just my experience with them, are they typically used for like a list of projects? Cause I feel like when you have a referendum, it's like something big or like something that when it's all done, everybody's like, this is what we got. And I feel like this list is just like pieces that I don't know, or is that not, am I like, just again, from my experience?
I would say the majority of the time when people go for a referendum, it is for an addition, it's for a new building, it's for like a grant.
thing.
Right,
Yeah.
but this would be more kind of along the lines of maintenance or health, life, safety, upkeep, and those aren't as common, but those definitely do exist.
Okay.
Having been part of 4 failed referendums myself, hard words like a swear word. I mean, riding the wave of positivity coming off of all of the investments we have made and
Yeah.
what it looks and feels like would be great. Referendums though, from the time that you say you're gonna do it and the time it has to be before it gets on the ballot, then it's for the following year's collection. I mean, you're looking way far ahead, and so I do think it's a discussion to be had, and I do think it needs to far extend beyond this room and even understand if there's an appetite for something like that in the community. I also would like to understand the timing around some of the high school and when those fall off within high school, cause I think from a taxpayer perspective, paying into both districts and understanding like when this might happen would be, I think, an important component to understand.
Is that soon or?
I have no idea,
Okay.
just asking.
Yeah.
I think that's
throwing
important
it out there.
to look at, as an impact as well. But I think there are things on here that we just have to, that's why I asked the question about the grants too. Like if LED lighting is something that we can get a significant amount of money and we're putting up 30% of it, I think it's stupid to leave money on the table and not go after those kind of projects where we can make those upgrades. And ultimately, especially LED lighting will probably save money in the end, right? Those are the ones where you look at like safety first, and then the second one's like what will pay for itself and reimbursement from expenses, and then the ones that are just on there because
They could be done.
and they probably should be done, but would it be
Could be,
okay if they
should
were
be.
done 4 years from now or 5 years from now, or, I think those are important. I would be very, 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 very cautious before we talk about a referendum, there have been multiple failed ones in the community, that it would I think it would need to be driven by the community desiring to take that on and understanding that, especially with the cost of things being so high, it would be really hard to convince people that now's a good time to raise taxes.
I would agree. I think they're gonna see what we've done with the money that we've had and say you're fine.
Yeah.
You did air conditioning, what do you need us for?
Well, you know what, again, having lived here my entire life, and I know, I agree with you, Teresa. It would take a lot for me to say we need to go for a referendum, just because I've seen so many of them fail. Along with teacher strikes, it can rip communities apart, and you get your hopes up and you spend so much time, and then it doesn't go. I think of even Somonauk and Leland, they had that one that combined, and you spend so much time on that, and then you lose by.
If we were gonna approach the R word, I think we would wanna look at it from the 1% sales tax side. It's never, for those of you that don't know what that is, that's county-wide, so you have to get on board with all your partners in your county. Lee County currently has it in place, so we receive income from them. We weren't part of when they passed it, but we are recipients of their money. But what that does is it's a 1% tax only on things that are considered non-essential. So it does not tax groceries, it does not tax medications, gasoline, those kind of things, cars, none of that. It's when you go out to a movie or you go out to eat at a restaurant, it's 1% within that county that then comes back and gets split per pupil evenly amongst the districts in the county. We've got an interesting location because of the corridors of 80 and 39 where there is a lot of money being spent on hotels, entertainment, eating out and things that might even come from the outside. And what's neat about that is you capture that revenue, and then you're supporting your schools even from people that aren't paying part of your property taxes. I would think there'd be more of an appetite in that realm before there'd be an appetite of passing it on, especially because we just went up with our levy.
So Brad,
But I was gonna say, we have to get like Ottawa and some of these
Well-
others on board.
And we've had that conversation as area superintendents recently.
I was just
So
gonna ask that.
I can dig that back up and see where some of those schools are.
It's a coordinated enough effort between all schools, and you do really talk up the fact that it's not taxed on the essentials. And a lot of times it's a way to enhance the educational experience for the kids in this county, not on the backs of the people paying the taxes in the county.
Well, and it's really beneficial also, it's also beneficial for, like, the districts that you're gonna get, you know, of everything, you're gonna get, so like, where I'm at now, they were gonna get based on the whole countywide, not just what's spent in that.
Yeah,
So
it's
and
based on,
benefit, like.
it's based on the amount of sales taxes generated
Not
as a
just-
county.
Right, as a
Yeah.
county,
And then
that's why
divided
we
up.
benefit from Lee.
Yeah.
Because we have some
Yeah.
kids in Lee, and those kids,
Oh, yeah.
per pupil, we get a percentage of
Well,
revenue that they collect.
And I think there's now, like, when it was discussed before, there's totally a lot of different superintendents in place. Like, if, there's probably not as many superintendents that were in place then that are now, in the South End. Like, you think about it, there's probably a big change.
The other piece I think we want to look at is percentage of adequacy target percentages for all the schools in the district. It'd be interesting to see where everybody
For
kind of
sure.
falls in line.
For sure.
Because there are districts, lots of districts in Illinois where they're without another dime in their pocket, they're already at 120 or 130% of what they would need to be able to adequately run their schools. And then there's some that are sitting down in the 60s. So you've got still such a huge disparity. But if you've got a county where all of them are up here and then you got one down here, it's not going to work. You've got to
Yep, for
find
sure.
that middle ground. So
For sure.
it'll be interesting.
And I think a lot of this conversation will have some more light shed on it. Next month when GRP waiving, bring some of that back, so we're able to see, kind of what knocking some of these things off and kind of what those price points.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in.
And I would love to see an opportunity to really tap into the chamber and into some other key groups of people and service organizations and pulling the community as a whole together and being able to look at, the community got behind and supported Lincoln High School, right? That was a pretty positive thing. Today,
Yeah.
there's still a lot to support for it. People were super excited when we invested in air conditioning. If we hadn't had ESSER dollars, I don't know if we ever could have pulled that off, but timing was great, we capitalized on it. So, again, I think people are behind and excited about things that happen, and I think when you sit with them and you go, like, this is like, a lot of the stuff on here is like, you really should have fire safe corridors, right? Like, we would all want that for our kids. We'd all want doors that properly lock. We all would love to have cameras in today's day and age to know what happened or didn't happen in the hallway. Like, these are things we as a community want. Because there might be alternate ways, I know you talked about this a lot when we first interviewed with you, alternate ways to fund some of these things when the community really owns it, gets behind it, and wants to drive it. There's ways to look at this and not just have it be straight up on the tax bill or not done at all. Like, looking at that alternative way of bringing it up. It's amazing what small towns can do when people get behind it. The track was a great example.
And people are excited, I think we're gonna see Northbrook and even the little thing that I sent you about how you had painted the outside of the old football press box and all that.
Yep.
It hit Facebook and there people were commenting, lots of positive comments, and I'm like, they actually noticed the paint job.
Yeah.
And we were like, really
Because it
complimenting.
hadn't been painted in 25 years.
It's like, but when you have something like that, I think,
There's ownership.
ownership and people
Yeah.
notice and, it's positive things. They're saying, yeah,
Pride's important.
yeah.
Have you, thought about bringing in some media and inviting them in to take pictures and do a story on all of them?
It should be out.
Show everybody the pictures, before and after pictures, and just, they tell a story.
We should have somebody make one of those like videos. Like with Canva.
Oh, they just volunteer.
No,
That's what I
no,
heard.
no,
I've
no,
already
no.
got like 7 other things.
I'll help you with that.
Okay.
I have a question. I know prior to me not being here for a couple months, once we talked about when we were back full board strength, are we gonna do anything with our, yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I think like our continuing ed type stuff as a board, working with ISB, or with ISB, but given the timing of the conference coming up, I think I would like to wait until after that, because these guys have to do all of the mandatory Open Meetings Act and all of those other trainings now, and then we're rolling right into the fall with the big conference, so why don't we kind of say that after that, we can meet our new rep at the conference, and then after that, we can sit down and really look at some strategic planning and some additional continuing ed for us as a board. That would be great. All right, so contrary to the agenda, I think we're gonna adjourn here and then have an optional tour afterwards.
I'll make a motion
So we
to
don't have to
adjourn.
come back here. We need to motion the budget tonight.
No, it's next month.
Tentative budget?
Do we need a tentative approval?
It'd be nice.
Okay, all right, so 8.1, tentative presentation.
I'll make a motion to approve the tentative motion. Budget. Well, I think we were good. Yeah.
Wait a second.
Second. Mark Whitford.
Okay, roll call.
Cass? Spinoza?
Yes.
Camitas? Landers?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Schrader?
Yes.
I think we should also then motion for item 8.2 to table until next month, since it wasn't listed as approval item. So can we have a motion to table item 8.2 until September?
Can I ask a question? So, I guess, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, are we like tabling it till next month and still deciding yet for this school year? Or are we going to look at how this school year plays out and make a change for next school year? So I feel like that's kind of important too.
Student fees is a multi-layered thing, so we've already pushed forward the layers of technology and registration.
Oh, okay, so
It's
that
already
is
gone
not.
out for this year.
Correct.
So that's not even up for option. So I think if, depending on who this conversation is, if we wanna offer some sort of application of waiver or something, I'm not saying it couldn't start this year, but it would only be based on activity and not curricular.
So do we have to approve the other fees or do we
You know,
have to do
those
that?
were part of.
Okay.
Those have not been changed.
Yeah.
Gotcha, okay. So,
Motion to table the student fee discussion for next month.
I'll make a motion to approve, or to table the, school fees discussion until next month.
Camitas? Spinoza? Cass? Schrader?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Landers?
yes.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn at
8:01.
8:01. Welcome back.
Roll call.
Schrader?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Rapp?
Yes.
Landers? Camitas? Spinoza? Cass?
I would love for someone to just say no.
I did that one meeting, remember?
No, I wanna say